All right, hey guys. So I wanted to put out a video today to talk about why and how we ended up where we are today. So this journey began, truthfully, probably 4 months ago. This plan and journey goes back more like 5 years. Right when I graduated college, I was 22 years old. I had gotten my degree, gotten my commission, moved back home to Texas, and was really trying to figure out what I was going to do in the civilian world. When you go to a military school and you do all the things there, you're not really thinking about how you're going to put back into society. You're thinking about how you're going to go into the military and execute whatever mission you're given and all those things. And, when I decided to take the path that I did not have a plan for what I was going to do. So I moved back into the house. A couple of months into being in the house, my dad sat me down and was like, hey, look, you being here every day is not working out. So you got to go out and get a job. It was the summertime, so I don't think he was being unreasonable after I had couched for a couple of months and, kind of lived off the fat of the land and, did what I did. So, put out, kind of made it my full-time job to search for a job. And we have a fantastic network with school, but I was in Texas, so yeah, that didn't work out. Um, so anyway, my stepmom had purchased milk from a local dairy farmer who did raw dairy, and they were really nice people, always looking for good help. I think a lot of farmers are always looking for good help. And I reached out and got a job. Um, Basically, what I did at that farm was woke up at 5 o'clock, 5:30, got to the farm, collected the cows, which was pretty easy because the cows were just waiting to, be milked. They were already lined up outside the barn. And brought them into the barn with another person, and we milked cows for a couple of hours. All that milk was then transferred into a chiller, and then the skilled people bottled it and all that good stuff. And then the rest of my day was spent doing whatever needed to be done on the farm. So I would prepare fence lines, feed horses, feed calves. They had goats, so I fed goats. Did a little bit of stuff in the store, but really just kind of did the back-breaking work out there on the farm, and it was awesome. I mean, it was great. It was summertime in Texas. It was 100 degrees. But it was great to do something with my hands and to get outside and just do something different than I had been doing for the last 4 years. So 2 months of that, and I was ready to keep working for these guys, but I was servicing a huge debt load from college. And when I approached the farmer about keeping me on, I had another offer from another company. And, I said, here's what they're paying me. Can we do this? When I had gotten the job that I had gotten, one of the stipulations was, hey, I just needed enough money to pay my debt. And, this farmer looked at me and saw the number, which was pretty low. I mean, and the farmer said, that'd be nice, but maybe we can get there in 4 or 5 years. And I just said, I'm sorry, that's not going to work. And I think for my 2 months of working at that farm, I had done it without stipulating a paid amount. And I did that because I needed something to do with my time. They needed good help, and I didn't really need the money at that moment. My student loans were in forbearance, and it wasn't something that needed to happen. So I just let him pay me whatever he paid me. So I think after a month, I got a check for $1,000 for something like 60 or 70 hours of work a week. So as you can imagine, that's not a lot of money. And that's not a lot of money when you've got a debt service to pay, and when you're trying, when you're a young guy trying to get out of the house and get on your feet. So long story short, left the farm, entered corporate world, and began to pay down on my debt. Now, why I began to pay down on my debt comes from pretty much one piece of advice. And it was a piece of advice I got from my dad, which was get out of debt, get a job you love. And his whole mindset behind that whole thing was pretty much while you're paying down on this debt, you've got a boat anchor chained to your legs and you're trying to swim, which was a fact. And it was a fact that followed me for the next 5 years, I guess 6 years now, through every job I've had, every apartment I've rented. There's constantly just this overhead battle going on of how am I going to pay my bills this month. So probably after being in my apartment up in North Texas after I left the farm, I started to try to build a budget. And I don't quite remember what I started with, but where I ended up was with Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. And if you've never read any of Dave Ramsey's stuff, or if you've never heard about Dave Ramsey, this dude lays out pretty much what you wish your grandparents would have told you. Pretty much lays out a kind of grandparent you wish you would have had. I feel like our parents all have the story about, how their parents told them and taught them how to pinch pennies and how to save. And, when they came out of high school at 18, they had a savings account with $20,000 waiting for them in it. And sorry for the camera shaking there, but that's kind of, I think, the skills that Ramsey teaches, regardless of what you agree or disagree with about what he believes. So I signed up for their online course. I got their free app, and so this was 2013, 2014. So I started to budget and save. And at the end of the day, after all of my debt service was paid, after my rent was paid, after gas was put in my car, I had $100 a month to play with. So you can't really dig out of a hole with a shovel the size of a toothpick. But it was a start, got a budget going. And the whole goal of that was not to come and be where we are now. The whole goal of that was get out of debt. And I just kind of got a little obsessed with it, was pretty bad at it, stayed pretty bad at it, been pretty bad at it since. But it just shows that, if you're consistent with something, even for a certain amount of percentage of the time, you can make it happen. And had a couple of job changes over those years, got married, met my wife, got married, haven't bought a house or anything like that, didn't contribute to a 401k very heavily, didn't save super aggressively, but got a savings 3 to 6 months in the bank, paid down all of the debt, got that out of the way. It took 5 years of really aggressive fat checks to really knock that down. We started out with, my wife fortunately had no debt. I started out with probably $80,000 coming out of college of student debt. I was out of state at a pretty good school, and then I had to buy a car, so that was another $10,000 on that. So I think my max number was about 92, and just continue to pay it down. And that sucked, but what that allowed me to do was delay gratification and kind of build that skill, which was not a skill that I had when I was a kid. And that was a big benefit of that class and what that taught. So anyway, that 5 years was pivotal in getting to where I am now, because it allowed me to delay gratification. It allowed me to put a savings together, that if you don't have savings in the bank right now, I think that they say 90% of Americans can't even lay their hands on $500. And if you're in that spot right now, all I can say is now's the time especially now with what we're in the midst of now, is the time to start doing your best to get out of debt and accomplish getting the savings put together, because it is such a incredibly secure thing to not have to worry about your next paycheck, right? Because you're out of debt, you don't have bills. Okay, you have your living arrangement. Well, I'll talk about our living arrangement later, but you've got a living arrangement, you've got food on the table, you're paying your electric and your water and your gas. You've got a savings. If anything happens to you, you've got that savings to fall back on. And if you've got 3 to 6 months, 3 to 6 months is a long time to get a new job if you've lost your job, to get over a health issue if you've got a health issue, to do any of these things. So it's the savings is how the budget, it's what it all rotates around. So anyway, off my soapbox about a savings account. Going back to work. So I got a couple of really good jobs with really great companies, really enjoyed all that I did with them, but was not in love with the work that I was doing. And I was also learning about what it looked like to work in a corporate world, corporate environment, to hold these jobs and to live that lifestyle. Now, I have a lot of friends that are still doing it. I've got a lot of people that I really admire and respect that are doing it, so I'm not hating on anybody. But I was finding that I was not feeling fulfilled in what I was doing, and my mind was constantly going back and back and back to the farm. And so, probably 2015 rolls around, 2016 rolls around, and I start to achieve more responsibility at work, more pressure at work. But again, it's not fulfilling. It's not what I wanted. And so I started to try to figure out what I did want. I started to try to figure out what I wanted to achieve with life, and what I wanted to go after. And I don't remember where I got the book. I don't remember where it came from or where it popped up, but it was Pastured Poultry Profits by Joel Salatin, which I'm sure plenty of people have either heard of or have gone with. And I read it and was like, I'm going to do that. And one of the main things he says in his book, which I've already echoed, is get out of debt. And I think when I picked up that book, I was still probably $60,000 in debt. So a couple years had gone by, aggressively saving and aggressively putting that savings towards debt. But 60 grand is still a huge chunk of money. So read the book, talked to the wife. My wife was like, I'm not into that. That's cool. A chicken sounds like fun to have, maybe. Maybe a garden sounds like fun, but we're not going to do that. And I can't blame her. Who would feel good about marrying somebody and then in the midst of a new marriage, that person's like, hey, I want to make this big change and I want to do something like farming. So just continue to pay down debt, continue to work, continue to try to be successful, to gain more responsibility and to gain more experience. And those things continue to compound and to really pay out dividends. Work went very well. The experiences that I had were building so that I was gaining more knowledge and gaining more experience and more wisdom, theoretically, to make decisions. And, I wanted to capitalize on that. So fast forward to 2 years later, we got a deployment, with my unit. And that put a lot of stuff on hold at the house, but it was a really big financial opportunity because, when you deploy, you got some tax benefits that come along with that, but we knew that it was also going to be an opportunity to really squirrel away some of this income. My wife had a job on the side and was contributing to it as well, which was amazing. And we just really still continue to focus on this idea of okay, we can get out of debt, we can go for a job that we think we might love, and that would be farming. My mind at this entire time keeps going back to the farm, back to the dairy cows, that kind of thing. And before we deployed, we decided to take a trip. We came up to Polyface in the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia, and we visited, and we cornered Joel, and we cornered Daniel, and we said, hey, we want to be interns at this farm, but we're married. How can we make this happen? And I'm sure these guys get cornered a lot because they were very graceful and they were very kind. But it was, apply through our program. We've got a program, apply. So we left there feeling very excited that we'd actually talked to, famous farmers. And but I got deployed and left, and while I was gone, Christina did apply to the apprenticeship program there, I should say the internship program, and got through the first and second round of interview, but then ultimately didn't get chosen for a spot, which was very heartbreaking and very kind of, shook up our world about, well, are we going to do farming? But we stayed consistent, prayed about it, and said, I think this is something we really want to continue to pursue, but I don't know how, and we don't know how, but maybe an opportunity is going to come around. So when I got back from the deployment, if anybody's deployed, that a deployment is extremely disruptive to your life and changes a lot, and you're going to be on a pathway to recovery. In whatever areas of your life are the things that took a back seat while you deployed. So I got to experience all that. We got to experience all that. It's a struggle, but you get to sacrifice for your country, and I think that that's a profound opportunity that not enough people are taking advantage of. Yeah, that's kind of an oxymoron or whatever. But I think that doing it is worth it, even though it's extremely difficult. So got home, went back to my job, still had to have a paycheck in the bank, but the farm idea did not die. And we wanted to find something like Polyface to go after. We liked their method, we liked what their mission and what they were talking about. What we didn't like was the fact that they do not have, or did not have at the time, I don't know if they've changed since, a year and a half or whatever, but they didn't have an opportunity for husbands and wives to come and work on the farm. And, we weren't going to split up again right after a deployment and attempt that, regardless of how much we wanted to try the lifestyle out, right? We weren't going to go and maybe she got it for the 6 months and then I'd get it and I'd live in town and we commute and we try to see each other on the weekends and all this other stuff. We just weren't up for it. So what I decided to do was I decided to start networking on my own and trying to find farms that had opportunities for married people. And there are quite a few farms out there that have opportunities for married people. But I think that you have to be thoughtful on how you're going to fit into somebody else's farm, and do your views and do your skill sets, do they align in such a way that when you come onto the farm, you're going to contribute and not detract from what they're doing. And what I did not want to do was set us up for failure by getting onto a farm where, very clearly we didn't fit the model, or we didn't fit the, kind of the vibe of what was going on the farm. So that caused a lot of opportunities immediately to get shaken out and, not be what we pursued. But we did find a couple of farms and decided to reach out to those farms and see what they thought about the idea of, hey, we're married, we've got no kids, we've got a chunk of time we're willing to dedicate to this. In our story, it's 2 years. We're willing to invest in somebody else's business in order to learn and in order to um, push and put into their business everything we can, and in return we get to learn, right? Um, and we found one that model worked for, right? And it took some creativity on our part and some risk taking on our part, but it took a lot of risk taking and willingness on the farmer's part as well. But that's how we ended up here at J&L Green. We emailed the Greens and said, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing. Um, and eventually got a response back. And the response was, I'm interested, but let's talk about it. Let's see how this could work. Which involved a phone interview. And all I can say about if you're thinking about doing something like this is you need to have done the soul searching about if you're going to be a farmer or if you want to be a farmer. You need to have done the hard work before you approach farmers. Farmers are business people. They are savvy. They are with it. And if they have a business that's succeeding, they fall into a category of extremely hardworking and intelligent folks. It is not easy to accomplish what has been accomplished on a lot of these farms. And so I feel like we had fleshed out hard. I mean, I know from the hours and hours of conversation my wife and I have had about if we're going to do this, that when we were asked the questions about why we would do it, we would be prepared with an answer. So I wanted to be able to show that we had thought about this and that we were really thinking it through, about quitting our jobs, moving, and starting a completely different lifestyle, which is what this is and what this has turned into. So we were able to sit down and say, here's our plan. We were able to come to them with a plan and see if that fit their business model, fit that farm, fit their farm. And fortunately, it did. It took a couple of weeks to come to a decision point. And we came to a deal that was agreeable. We took a reduced salary for both of our work labor, both myself and my wife, to come and work on the farm, and to pour into their business. We would go ahead and we would purchase our own living situation, which is the RV that we live in now. And we would pour, our labor into the business. And in return, they would pour into us, right? And they would teach us, as much as they could for 2 years. I had thought long and hard about starting my own business right out the gate and bootstrapping it or getting investor funds to attempt that. But this is a skill set that is required. I mean, it would be like if you had never laid brick, but you said, hey, I'm going to go start a masonry business. Someone's going to be like, nah, dude, do you even know what a brick is? Like, seriously. That's kind of the degree at which, you can get a lot of book knowledge out there nowadays about how to farm and what to farm and all that good stuff. But, can you actually put it into a practice, make a business happen, etc. And, so I put my notice in at work. Christina quit her job and we moved. I bought a camper, fixed it up, got it up here, paid somebody to tow it because I don't own a big truck, and we got in place and started working and just kind of put our noses down to the grindstone. So that is, in a nutshell, how we came to be where we are today and why we're here at this farm. This is the attempt to live the lifestyle, live the life, help people, right? Help both people that we're feeding and then these business owners who, didn't really need our help before we came, but we get to pour into their business, which is an exciting thing to be a part of and to do. Man, my camera is just shaking. Sorry, guys. But, that's why we're here. So, yeah, if you've got any questions or comments, put them down below. Shoot me an email, through the channel. But you know, that's what we're doing. We're farming to then go and start our own farm, to be able to bring food to people, to be able to raise animals the best way that we see fit, and to produce super high quality food products. And you know, that's what I want to do. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to get emails for updates, and I'll be talking to you soon.